Yes, we are going to do a change of place, and I am a bit of an oddball here. I am not, confession, I'm not a state or county master gardener coordinator. I have the yellow dot on my tag, which means I am different, hopefully good different. So my name is Holly Campbell, and I'm an extension associate with Southern Regional Extension Forestry. We're located in Athens, Georgia, at the University of Georgia. However, we don't just work in Georgia. We work across all 13 southern states, creating and promoting forestry and natural resource extension programs and projects. So today I want to share with you a Southern Region project that I'm working on with my boss. Bill, can you stand, please? Sorry. Any questions that I can't answer, Bill can answer about this project, but a project that I'm working on in the region that addresses community level wildfire preparedness through the Master Gardener program. So I'm creating a program. It's going to be an advanced training for Master Gardeners. All right, so how many people think that wildfires are just a problem in the Western US? That's awesome, because I at first thought that wildfires were just a problem in the West, and in fact, as that's not the case. They're an issue nationwide, including in the Southeast. So getting started with my presentation, I want to share with you a story of a fire that occurred a couple of years ago to emphasize the importance of having a prepared community. Who all's been to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park? Okay, it's located in western North Carolina, eastern Tennessee. It's a popular tourist destination, tens of thousands of visitors every year. It's also popular with the locals. This is one particularly popular trail about 8 miles south of Gatlinburg, Tennessee, called Chimney Trail. And in the fall of 2016, like most parts of the Southeast, we were experiencing a very severe drought. Parts of Appalachian Mountains hadn't had rain for about 2 months. And the US Drought Monitor had rated the eastern Tennessee area of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park as extreme or exceptional. These are the two most, the highest categories of drought you can get. So it was dry. So you can imagine when 2 teenagers climbed up to the top of Chimney Trail and they started a fire, what the consequences would be. That fire spread quickly. The National Park Service was tasked with fighting the fire for about 4 days. It only expanded to about 8 acres. National Park Service had boots on the ground trying to contain this fire. They had 3 helicopters dropping fire retardants and water on this fire. And they somewhat had it corralled, but on the morning of November 28th, just 3 days after Thanksgiving, the fire got out of control. North winds that were heading towards Gatlinburg at 20 miles per hour caused the embers of this fire to go airborne. And the embers started their own fires, and the fire quickly spread to 500 acres. So again, when embers go airborne, they start fires in advance of where the actual fire is, and these are called spot fires. So these spot fires expanded on the 27th and into the 28th. And starting sort of in the morning of the 28th, again, not many days after Thanksgiving, there's a lot of people visiting up in Gatlinburg. Downtown Gatlinburg was smoked out. And evacuation orders started to go in as this fire, the winds kept increasing. They started at 20 miles per hour, but I'll tell you momentarily what they actually got to. And so emergency management was trying to get people to start evacuating, but still they didn't know how extreme this fire was going to be. Well, a spot fire about the evening of November 28th started just outside of Gatlinburg. And guess what the winds were? Were they 40 miles per hour? How many people think that? Were they 50 miles per hour? 60? Okay, sorry, I was building that up. They were 89 miles per hour. So when those kind of winds combined with a spot fire that happened outside of Gatlinburg, The fire within minutes spread into downtown Gatlinburg and ignited 20 structures immediately. Power lines, trees fell on power lines, knocking them down, starting new fires. The power lines knocked out power. They blocked traffic getting out. You imagine people didn't have power. Cell phone lines were flooded with 911 calls. Emergency management was encouraging people not to use their cell phones because they were clogging up the lines. When the power went out, I'm not sure if it was the fire department at Gatlinburg, but their whole communication system went down because they didn't have the power to fuel it. And people were scrambling to get out. You could imagine this must have felt like Armageddon, just chaos as people were scrambling to get out. I watched one video on YouTube and every other word was bleeped out because people were cursing the entire time as they were driving down their windy mountain road with flames all around them trying to get out. So it was definitely a tragedy in the making. So by the wee hours of November 29th, the fire had made its way through Gatlinburg and was on its way to Pigeon Forge, which is the location of what park? Dollywood. So the fire was cresting the hill down into the Dreammore Resort of Dollywood, and rains began. Those rains stopped, well, they didn't stop the fire, but they slowed the progression of the fire, and the resort was saved. But that didn't stop the destruction that happened in and around Gatlinburg, which was quite severe. So the next few pictures just sort of highlight some of that destruction. You can find many more online if you want to see what else happened. So clearly, structures were destroyed, businesses were destroyed, at least momentarily until they rebuilt. Lives were destroyed. People came back to their year-round homes or their seasonal homes, and they were gone in a lot of cases. And sometimes, tragically, people lost loved ones in this fire. So again, it was a major tragedy. This was considered a firestorm. And that was in part because of the strong winds. And we're looking at some of the numbers in the aftermath of the Chimney Tops 2 fire that occurred around Thanksgiving, November 2016. There were 14 lives lost. Now these were folks that lived there year round. They knew those windy country roads. These were people who were visiting on their Thanksgiving break. They were young, too much older. There were 176 people injured or had health issues that were directly related to the fire, over 24 homes, businesses or structures destroyed or damaged in the fire. There were over 17,000 acres burned in just a couple of days. And there was over approximately $1 billion in damage from this one fire. So this sounds similar to what we heard last fall in Santa Rosa. No? Or what about in Los Angeles? More recently? Or what about in Mount Shasta area that's going on right now, which is the highest amount of acres ever burned in a wildfire in California? So these fires are with us. Fire is sort of here to stay. And fire experts and professionals all agree that fires are actually becoming more intense. So looking at some of the numbers, if we're looking at an approximate 50-year time span, US wildfires are burning more acres and they're costing more. So we're looking at about 1973, starting at about 1.9 million acres. By last year, we had 10 million acres that burned. That's a 245% increase in acres burned. And looking at the cost of wildfire, I didn't have numbers for the 70s, but if we're moving from 1985 to 2017, $240 million to $2.9 billion spent fighting wildfires. That's 1,100% increase in the cost of fires. Fire is here to stay. And throughout history, there have always been wildfires. There's fires that are started by lightning, but more recently, there's a lot of fires started by arson and accidental ignitions, like the 2 teenagers that went up on the top of chimney tops and they started a fire. Fire wouldn't be a problem if there weren't for a few factors that make it be a problem. So one of those, and I'm not going to cover all of them, I'm going to talk about the three sort of most important ones for a lot of fires across the United States. So a lot of natural areas aren't managed. They have fairly dense fuels. Fuel is anything that'll burn. It can be a house, it can be a shrub, it can be a vine, it can be a tree. And a lot of natural areas have very dense vegetation. But it's not necessarily thinned out through forest management, or it even can be a range, thinned out through range management. There is no low intensity fire like prescribed fire, if any of you are familiar with that would thin the vegetation, decrease the density of fuels that could lead to wildfire. Well, that's not necessarily an issue unless you have drought conditions or extremely dry conditions like may exist in the West when they have maybe 6 months of no rain, like in California. So when you combine that heavy fuel accumulation with drought, it becomes an issue. Now, a lot of people really love to live near these natural areas. They move out to the suburbs, they want to be near the beautiful vegetation, they want to have the mountain home where they look out at the natural splendor, they have the privacy. But these folks, which live in what's called the Wildland Urban Interface, or the WUI, how many people are familiar with that? Okay, so Wildland Urban Interface are basically those developments that are near natural areas. Those folks are at risk for wildfire. We're not talking about the folks inside of urban areas. We're talking about the folks who live near these natural areas. So when you combine all of those things together, heavy fuel accumulation, drought, and folks living near these natural areas, this is one reason why wildfires have become much more expensive to fight. So hopefully I've impressed upon you, it's not a matter of if another wildfire is going to come. It's a matter of when it will arrive. And are we going to be ready when it does arrive? And so you're probably thinking, well, gosh, now I feel terrible. We've had these great presentations and now Holly's really brought me down. So what can we do? Well, there is a lot we can do. Number one is we must learn to live safely with wildfire. Fire's not going away. It's here to stay with us. And we must implement methods that achieve the greatest impact. For example, one easy thing we can do in our communities is develop partnerships with our emergency management. And we can work on communications and evacuation plans. That's one easy thing that we can do. There's a lot of things that we can do. But as mentioned, the folks that are at greatest risk are the ones living in those wildland urban interface areas. And so one thing that we can do is we can empower them to take action. So we could help people help themselves. This sounds like a great job for extension. So when a grant opportunity, make sure I'm on the right side here, when a grant opportunity came forward with the USDA National Institute of Food and Agriculture, my colleagues and I had this idea we've been tossing around of wildfire preparedness, and we pitched a project for this Smith-Lever Special Needs Grant, and they had a special category for disaster education through extension. So we proposed to develop a wildfire preparedness training for master gardeners to help increase community-level preparedness in southeastern wildland urban interface areas. That's a mouthful, I apologize. Why master gardeners? We could have gone through a number of audiences. Well, I don't think I'm sort of preaching to the choir. I don't think I need to convince you of the success of this program and the amount of volunteer hours and the importance that master gardeners have in their communities. They're a respected source of information, as are all of you. And so they're a great conduit for information about wildfire preparedness. So why in the Southeast? Okay, well, I'm in the Southeast and I work on regional projects. I also didn't want to do a national project because of the complexity of landscapes that I would have to deal with. But the other reason why I wanted to work in the Southeast on this project is because a lot of people don't realize that the Southeast has the greatest number of wildfires out of any region every single year. Not the most acres burned, but the most wildfires in numbers. And so we have risk. Now, granted, those wildfires may be a quarter acre, maybe as large as 300,000 acres, more towards that lower end of the spectrum. So we have a lot of small wildfires. Also, the Southeastern region is the fastest growing region in the nation. We have the states with the highest amount of WUI area, and we also have states with the highest amount of homes in the WUI area. So those factors combined, we have a lot of wildfire risk. So the name of the project is Preparing for Wildfires with Firescaping, Master Gardener Training. Our grant was accepted. That's why I'm here today. So what in the world is firescaping? How many people know? That's better than I was thinking. That's great. Okay, so firescaping is when you arrange features on a landscape to prevent the spread of fire. That can be using fire-resistant plants. That can be opening up space on a landscape. It's kind of a design method, and it's synonymous with fire-resistant landscaping. So it's a landscaping method. It's also synonymous with Firewise landscaping. How many people have heard of that? Okay, yeah, it's a very popular program. They didn't get the funding. They're supportive of the project, but they asked me not to use Firewise in the name. So. All right, so let's talk about what the components are of this training. So there's a train the trainer aspect. It's an online e-extension course for agents. It has 7 interactive training videos with support resources directly related to those chapters. And there's a number of state and regional contacts that can help support the training if agents aren't comfortable in teaching the training. And as far as the components, we are proposing a Master Gardener Advanced Training. So this won't be part of the regular training that Master Gardeners are working on. It'll be 1 to 2 days. It depends on the state and what they're interested in. There's going to be a printed chapter material that they can add to their binders. There's also going to be canned presentations that will be adaptable based on the state or the region. There's going to be proposed interactive activities for these day-long trainings. One of the activities is going to be developing a home risk assessment. The other one is learning how to create a firescape design. It's actually a really fun 2-dimensional activity. We're going to provide recommended resources for Master Gardeners to use in their outreach and education, plus a number of contacts. We're also going to be proposing several Master Gardener volunteer activities that hopefully we can track for outcomes and impact. So we have a whole pilot implementation over the next 2 years, and we have based this on a GIS spatial analysis. Again, this is for the southern region, 13 southern states. We are selecting the most at-risk counties in the Southeast. And this is based on a couple of sources of data. So it's based on counties with the greatest WUI area. Now, again, we're focusing on WUI because these are the folks who are most at risk to wildfire. And we're also looking at the number of state and federal reported wildfires over a 10-year time span, 2008 to 2017. Why are we looking at those years? Because people tend to respond when they remember something like this. So we wanted it fresh in their mind. Oh gosh, I remember when that fire happened a couple of years ago. Yeah, we need to do something about this. So we are going to promote the advanced training in the selected counties that have Master Gardener programs. And then hopefully, and that's going to be over 2019 and 2020, and then hopefully we are going to be evaluating the outcomes and the impact. I really like this exercise we did earlier, and I came up with my forward casting approach. My boss did a wonderful logic model for us for this grant, but here we go, and maybe this will help wrap this up. If we teach Southeastern Master Gardeners to teach communities to prepare for wildfire through firescaping or home risk assessment, then we will see a reduction in homes lost to wildfire and reduction in the spread, size, and severity of wildfires. So we know we're promoting this to a busy audience. We are promoting it to all of you, which is why I'm here. Hey, this is really interesting. Would you help, promote this in your counties and state if you're in the southern region? Hopefully we'll make this national at some point with some modifications. So we are promoting to state and county Master Gardeners, coordinators, Master Gardeners themselves, A&R program leaders. I'm going to be presenting later this month at the Southern Region A&R PLN meeting about this project. We're also reaching out to the state Firewise coordinators with the state forestry agencies, and also working with fire managers, because these are the folks who are working with fire issues on the ground. We have a very comprehensive marketing plan through social media, emails, webinars, news articles, and newsletters. And we've had a lot of other audiences express interest in this. Number one, master naturalists are very interested in this project. FEMA is interested. Federal agencies like the US Forest Service, private landowners, the landscape industry, especially landscape architects, they're like, we want to make a pretty firescape, and so much more. This project is currently under construction. All the deliverables will be completed later this year, so I am currently working busily on it. I wanted to promote it sort of in advance to let you know it's out here. So I thank you for your attention. I'm right at the end of my time. If you have any questions, unfortunately I have to leave today, but my boss is here for the entirety of the conference and you can flood him with questions. I also have a little flyer that's on the table over there that has a few aspects of what I've talked about and has my contact information on it. So thank you so much. It's been a pleasure being here.